mines that were down a year and a half ago are now back producing. And it's a result of international competition, and it's a result of making sure that we are competitive. We can be competitive with anybody, anywhere in the world, as long as we're playing on a level playing field.
Level playing field.
But once they start dumping at prices below what they actually produce it for,
Yes.
because their government subsidize it, then we get in trouble. And so those are the kind of things that we try and make sure happen.
Good. We're visiting with Senator Dave Tomassoni, and talking about the importance of a level playing field, and just jobs in general. And there's so many pictures in your office that about the range and jobs and family and that. And if we could, I'd just like you to maybe give a little narrative on the picture behind us here.
Well, that was,
We can frame that up.
I don't know the artist's name, but I know she painted a picture of the Hall Rust, and the Hall Rust is a mine in Hibbing that is the world's largest open pit mine.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
And a little.
Tell us about how deep these.
Well, this one goes down about 600 feet, and it's over a mile long.
Yes.
And it's also now going further to the north to where Hibbing taconite is. Hibbing taconite is mining it at this point in time.
Yes.
But the history of this mine is pretty interesting, because Hibbing was actually located on top of the mine back in the early 20s.
Oh.
And I mean, this is a city now of 15 to 20,000 people located on top of this mine. Mm-hmm. And the ore was underneath the city. And
Okay.
the mining companies had to get to the ore. They moved the entire city. I mean, they moved houses, they moved banks, they moved churches, they moved schools.
Back in the 20s.
Back in the 20s.
Before the Depression.
And if you've been to Hibbing and you've seen the Hibbing
have.
High School, Hibbing High School was built as a result of that move back in the early 20s. And to give you an idea of the building itself, the Capitol in 1905 was built for $4.8 million.
Yes, our capital. Yes.
Hibbing High School was built for $3.9 million in
Oh.
1920, and they made it a really good school. And they decided that this was going to be the one thing we're going to do right on the Iron Range is educate people, and that was
Yes.
that was one of the things that we're really proud of, is our educational system. And so that school was built, and the entire town was moved, and it was part of the history of the Iron Range. And we are still moving things. Like, as you know, we're moving Highway 53
Yes.
so that they can mine up there, and we now have the highest bridge in Minnesota as a result of this
Yes.
move. And it's going to open this summer. In fact, you should probably come up for that.
I would like to.
I think it's August 18th, and I just toured the area, and it's just a new spectacular thing that's happening as a result of the mining industry. But in my short time here, this is now the third road that the mining companies have moved. The other two weren't as high profile as this because they weren't as important, but this one. It's all about getting to where the ore is and making sure that they can continue mining.
Yes. You mentioned education, and I have served with you, enjoyed that on the education committee and different policy and finance at different points during our shared service. I know it's a very high priority for you. Reflect on that.
Well, the reflection of how education is being delivered now in rural Minnesota is way different than how it was when I was going to school. And just to give you some comparisons of numbers, the Hibbing High School, when I graduated in 1971, and I graduated from Chisholm, but Hibbing had about 450 kids in the graduating class. Yep. Today they have less than 200. And that not only has a snowball effect on the type of education you can deliver, it has a snowball effect on the kids, and it has a snowball effect on the teachers. Yeah. And so the product that can come out is not as good as it could have been, because you don't have as much money, because we fund based on per pupil units. Yep. And so at that point in time, and nothing gets cheaper, and we constantly need more money. And as we were discussing this year, we all were for a 2% increase in the funding formula for education, and that still wasn't going to be enough to adequately fund our schools. So it's one of those.
Because we're trying to recruit and retain staff too. I mean, it might be a better living to work in the mines. Well, in terms of the amount of money, and you're competing with that too.
Well, and teachers who have been there for a while make a very good salary. But as you know, our biggest problem is recruiting new teachers and coming in, because it's a really tough job. I mean,
Yes.
I used to do a hockey school every summer, and it would take me 2 days to say teachers deserve every day off that they get because I was dealing with all these young kids, and I didn't have the patience that these teachers have. So, it's almost a thankless job, but I know that teachers really love their work because they have to love their work in order to do it and to deal with those little kids and to see them grow and to see them get smarter as they go through the system is very, very gratifying. We actually deserve a huge amount of thanks to teachers, and that maybe oftentimes they don't get.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for your contributions on the Education Committee, and just, there just seems to be a very strong education work ethic from people that I've met up in your area in the range, and I've noticed too that in recent years some of the highest graduation rates are from northern schools, and some have 100% graduation rates. Notwithstanding that they're losing students, they're very proud. They know that's a passport for the future.
I have two little stories for you on that line. We have a couple of big companies on the Iron Range that are part of the diversification of the economy, and one of them is Delta Airline Reservation
Yes.
Center, and then there's Blue Cross Blue Shield, who has another service center, as well as Delta Dental. And all three of those companies will tell you that they get the best product coming out of those places in their company because of the fact that the people not only show up to work every day, they actually do their job, and it's part of the work ethic thing.
Yes.
But I remember this way back when my son was probably in about the 7th or 8th grade, and he was out shoveling the snow.
This one that was born during the Olympics?
No, this is the other one.
Okay,
This is my older son. And
let's give him a name.
This is Dante.
Okay, Dante.
And Dante was shoveling the sidewalk. And there was a big windrow that came by because of the snow plow that came by. And I was watching him because I knew he was going to shovel the snow only as wide as the shovel and not as wide as the sidewalk. So
Yeah.
I just watched until he got done, and then finally I put my head out the window and I said, "Finish the job. You're going to start a job, you finish it, and you do it right. Now shovel it the width of the sidewalk, not just the width of the shovel." And I went back in the house, and I actually felt guilty about yelling at the kid, right? But I found out about 10 years later. He told somebody, "I learned a long time ago, when you start a job, you do it right and you finish it right, and you do it the best way you can." And so I thought this, and he pointed to that particular moment when I told him that. So it's pretty interesting how you tell kids things and they remember it maybe.
What's Dante doing today?
Well, I'm pretty proud of him. He's an attorney. He worked out in Bismarck for about 10 years in the oil and gas industry, but he wanted to come home, and so now he's living out of Duluth, and he's working for a law firm out of Duluth, and he's working as a lobbyist right here at the Capitol, so I get to see him quite often now, so it's a lot of fun.
Wonderful. And your other son?
And Danny is a pipe fitter, and here's an example of two kids that grew up in exactly the same family with exactly the same parents and exactly different. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Dante was the kid that did 8 years of education.
Yes.
Danny was the one that didn't like going to school at all, but he's doing really well in as a pipe fitter, and his house is way nicer than mine, and so I'm really proud of him too.
Yes. Well, they're working very hard, and I'm pleased that progress is
Yes, it's very nice.
being made, and that they can join you down here sometimes.
Yep.
And you've been married for a number of years,
Mm-hmm.
and through the Olympics and all that, starting in.
I should mention, if I'm going to mention those two, I got to mention our daughter Chantel. She has she has 4 kids, so those are the grandkids. All right, so
Okay.
those are the ones that I was just worn out over the weekend because I had a couple of them, and they just had me running all over the place. But
How
they're
old
just
are
so much
those
fun.
little kids?
The youngest one's 7, and then the
Okay.
oldest one is 14. So
Yes.
she got 4 of them. So.
Yeah, I empathize with that. It's a great joy, but it'll definitely keep you busy.
Yes, it does.
Good. And now you are down here during the session, but you're going to have to be back up into the district. How is that in terms of the travel back and forth? I mean, for me, it takes about 8 to 10 minutes to get back to my place. Mm-hmm. And Maplewood, for many of you, it's going to be a 3 to 5 hour drive. Some of our members, it's 6, 7 hours. Mm-hmm. What's that like? Being here in the metro and recognizing that you have a constituency back home too.
Well, we don't understand how you guys can live down here, quite frankly, with all the traffic and all the people. But no, it's it gets to be a drag from the standpoint of the family because you're away from the family a lot, and the ride becomes something that you just get used to and do it. It takes me 3 hours from door to door, but that's if there's no snow.
Yeah, if the weather's cooperating, and
now in the summertime with road construction, it'll be a little bit slower, and all that kind of stuff.
There will be.
But for the most part, it's one of these kind of things you adjust to. But at the same time, it's way easier to be closer. And then living down here and living away from the family has all kinds of ramifications, and so it's really, really difficult to be a rural legislator from the standpoint of having to be down here during the legislative session and being away from the family. So there's some consequences, but at the same time, you figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, and we know it's much more of a sacrifice when you're in greater Minnesota.
Yep.
And you're leaving behind your district. You're representing them very passionately, which you do.
Yeah.
But you're not able to be at as many events that you might want to be because you need to be here. But that's how it works. So.
Yeah. So
Good. I'd like, if we could, just to have you explain a few of the pictures that you have. Just wonderful memorabilia here.
Well,
We mentioned the mining shot here, but where? Let's stand up and take a look here.
you want to bring this with us?
Yes.
Okay. So
Right here. This
So-
is Lake Street and Chisholm.
these are actually snapshots that somebody took, and then a guy by the name of Hugh Reynolds painted them. And this is a street scene of Chisholm, the old water tower that's been gone for about 10 years now. So this is an older picture, but as you can see, all the buildings are brick buildings, and that's a result of what happened in 1908 when the entire town burned down. And so,
Really?
Yep. And
The whole?
the whole town burnt. Yep. And they said that's not going to happen ever again. And so they made all the buildings on Main Street be made out of brick.
Okay.
And there's a firewall in between each of the buildings. So in case there is a fire, they don't spread to the next building. Tom and Jerry's is one of the local bars, and it's owned by a former state senator, Jerry Januzich, and I get mixed up with him all the time because now that I'm the state senator, and my last name is Tomassoni, and it's Tom and Jerry's. People down here think I own the bar. But I tell them I've spent enough in the bar to own it, but I don't own it yet. So anyway, that's one of the street scenes. And this Hugh Reynolds, he's painted a whole bunch of these different street scenes all over the country, or all over the Iron Range, and there's probably 8 or 10 of these pictures that you could find. This one here is kind of special for me because this is the Park Edition in Hibbing, and this right here is the Sunrise Bakery, and the Sunrise Bakery is an Italian bakery that's been around for a real long time, owned by the Forty Company, and it's not here anymore. It's actually across the street right over here. They've moved the location, but this is right here is Checo's Bar. It's another Italian bar.
Checo's Bar.
Yep.
Okay.
And then this was my grandfather's Italian grocery store, and we used to live upstairs.
Your
in this.
grandpa, you lived in above a grocery store.
Yep. I was a little kid though, so I don't really remember it, but I know we did live up there. And then next door is another Italian bar, Palmer's Bar. But this is actually my grandmother, and this is my Aunt Seal, and they just happened to be in the picture. I don't exactly know how that happened, but they just happened to be in the picture. So that's why it's a special picture for me. And this is one of the laws I passed: slower traffic, move right. Because you know how you guys down here always hang out in the left-hand lane and never move over to the right-hand lane after you pass. So yeah.
See, we have a picture here.
And here's my first day in the legislature, and those are my two sons when they were young.
Yes.
That's Danny and that's Dante, and we were being sworn in at the House of Representatives there. So that was the opening day in the House.
It's very nice, and here we got to show one of the hockey pictures
Yeah,
here.
and this is my wife Charlotte and my son Danny, who actually open enrolled in Hibbing and to play hockey, and
That happens.
and ended up coming down to the state tournament and playing in the state tournament. So that was a lot of fun for me too, to see him do that at the XL Center.
Yes,
So,
I remember seeing you a couple of times at the XL at state tournaments as our
that's right.
kids in different tracks.
Yep,
but
that's right.
It's
Yes.
always
well,
fun.
You